occupational therapist and private practice owner. I've had a private practice since 2018, and that's when I first met Steve, who assisted myself in starting a private practice. And in 2019, Steve and I joined forces to help other therapists start and build their own private practice across the United States. We started in March to host private practice power hour sessions. So this is our second private practice power hour session. So we'll hold these webinars monthly, the third Wednesday or the third Friday of each month at 12 o'clock. And if you guys have topics that you guys these webinars, just because of what we see with working with private practices on what a lot of private practice owners are missing or need, but we're always looking for your feedback as well. And I am in North Dakota. Steve, you want to do a quick overview for those that may not know you?
Sure. Thanks, Kara. So my name is Steve Gluck. I am an occupational therapist, and I am the CEO of HelloNode. We actually run a few private practices, including consulting with others that are trying to start their practice. So together with Kara and the Next Level program, Therapy Business Builder program, we're able to achieve a lot of therapists. I think over 300 therapists by now were in the program, and we help them get their own private practice started. So that's exciting, and that's what we want to share. And we want to continue growing that. So we do believe in a strong community. And whether you're an OT, PT, or speech therapist, we'll be happy to work with you. And yeah, we want to grow the community and have more entrepreneurs out there doing their own business.
Awesome. So today we're going to talk about revenue cycle management. We find that a lot of people either one, they don't even know what RCM means, or if they do know that RCM means revenue cycle management, they're not comfortable with all the terms associated with revenue cycle management. They themselves do not have a good system and process in place to have a successful revenue cycle management. Unfortunately, we're starting to work with a lot of practice owners that have been up and running for a few years, and the revenue cycle management process is really causing them not to get where they want to be. And also we're finding that, you know, they're either not making money or really struggling to make it work. So hopefully you guys can learn information that will help you in your private practice. We also feel this information is extremely important just for therapists in general. Even if you don't work in private practice, we all should be educated on these terms in our academic programs as well, because it really influences a lot of things in the therapy world. So we're going to start with common terms. And this way, if you guys have any questions with any of these common terms, let us know. And then we're going to hit into that Q&A that we didn't get to last time. So revenue cycle management. What is revenue cycle management? Basically, it's the financial process of tracking patient care from appointment scheduling to final payment collection. Last time we did talk about kind of a pre-revenue cycle management with that insurance verification. We tend to find that a lot of people are really struggling with that insurance verification process, which is why we wanted to include that. So I say anything from the first time you meet that client, verify the insurance, through getting paid, you know, are all essential components of revenue cycle management. And that includes getting paid, whether you're private pay, whether you're cash, or hybrid, or whether you're insurance. And it's not just getting paid by the insurance company. What we've been seeing is a lot of therapists are getting paid maybe by the insurance company, but they're not following through with getting co-pays, co-insurances. They're not making sure secondary insurances are paying and so forth. So again, revenue cycle management, it's that financial process of tracking from patient care, from appointment scheduling to final payment collection. Steve, anything you want to add on top of that?
Yeah, there was a lot to say there, but yeah, it's essentially it's the beginning to the end. So essentially everything you need to do to take on a patient and all the way up to closing out that patient's balance for that visit.
And then accounts receivable. So accounts receivable are the outstanding payments owed to a practice by insurance companies or patients. Unfortunately, this is where sometimes we have therapists run reports and they realize that they have thousands and thousands of dollars in outstanding payments and they did not realize it. So how many of you guys that are on today run reports to make sure you know where you're at with payments and getting paid for your practice and so forth? Anyone run reports at the monthly or weekly to track this? Steve, Hello Note has great reports doing this. What is your recommendation on when to run these reports?
So yeah, so I mean it's different for different insurances. So for example, if you have primary insurance and you know they pay like Medicare pays every 2 weeks, so you can run it every 2 weeks, your aging balance report. And you can in Hello Note, you actually have a filter for filtering by insurance, which is nice. So you don't have to kind of look at everything all in one and worry that you're not getting paid quickly because some other insurances can pay you over a month. And that also includes self-pay. So in Hello Note, we do have a filter for just patient balance because you want to make sure that you're collecting the patient responsibility upfront, right? So whether that's a copayment or if you're just doing self-pay and you're charging a flat visit rate, you want to make sure you're collecting that. So it is important to run it, I would say, at least once every 2 weeks, just to make sure that you're not losing out on cash flow. Because the more you run it, actually, the cleaner your books will be and the more cash flow you will get.
100%. And the longer you wait to also collect payment, because if you're not running these reports, you might not be on top of things. And then the longer you wait to collect payment from patients, the harder it is to collect that payment. So it looks like some people are running reports. Some are doing it manually. Some track them again, and I think this will be a great topic for a future session, Steve, is really on systems and automations, but we need to do this, but we also want it to be efficient and time effective. So automating the process, having systems in place for running these reports, and also good systems in place for collecting is really essential as well. Accounts payable. So that's the money a practice owes to vendors, suppliers, or other service providers. Pretty straightforward. Key performance indicators. How many people track KPIs at least monthly? Yes or no? So we got some yeses, some nos. Um, does anyone not understand what KPIs are? So KPIs are essential to your practice. I had no idea what KPIs were when I started my practice, and probably for the first year or two. And people always told me that I needed to have KPIs and that they were really important. And I was like, great, well, what KPIs do I need? We see this a ton, and we see that people are really making a lot of big decisions without knowing their KPIs. So key performance indicators are metrics used to evaluate the financial health of a practice, such as claim denial rates, collection ratios, but KPIs can go above and beyond just that as well. Steve actually does a presentation on KPIs quite a bit, which could be another one we could follow up with. But Steve, I know you're passionate about KPIs, so what do you want to add on KPIs?
Yes, I'm definitely passionate about KPIs, especially knowing that most practice owners don't run them. So, so it's always surprising to hear because as a therapist, we actually do something similar with our patients, right? We track their progress, and we want to make sure that they're either getting better or either staying the same or getting worse, and that allows us to modify our treatment plan to get them better, right? But for your business, it seems like a lot of practice owners don't think that that's either essential or unfortunately they don't even know something like that exists, right? Like they don't know they have to run KPIs. Like yourself, Carrie, you're like exactly who I'm talking about. There's a lot of practice owners, like they're excited to run their business and they're doing great. They're getting patients, they're getting paid, they're hiring. But when you ask them, okay, what are your metrics? How's the health of your business? Did you get paid? Like how's your revenue this year versus last year, or in the summer versus winter? And I don't know. I'm just getting paid, and I know I'm getting paid more than before, but that doesn't really give you the health of your business, right? A lot of times when we look into actual businesses, yes, you might be getting paid more, but you're actually losing money because you're spending more on therapists or equipment. Reimbursements are declining, but you're kind of making up for that with more patients. But that still doesn't make much sense from a business perspective because you need to know what's happening with your business, right? So Hello Note does a lot with KPIs. We actually just recently added KPIs to our dashboard. Why? Because we want more therapists and clinic owners to be kind of responsible for their own KPIs. So we felt like adding it to the dashboard is a quick way to look at certain KPIs without having to run individual reports. But I still think individual reports are great to run, depending on the KPI, because every business is different. And that's important to understand. So I do a presentation on KPIs. So maybe in the near future, we'll do one on that. But it is important to understand that KPIs are different for everybody, right? There's no one size fits all. Yes, it could be similar, but you really need to understand your business and what KPIs are important for you. So just like other industries, like nothing to do with therapy, they run KPIs. And I speak to a lot of business owners, whether they're therapy practices or restaurants or pool cleaning, and they all run KPIs. And a lot of them actually sold their businesses, and they would not have been able to sell a business without showing their KPIs to the potential buyer. So keep that in mind. It is important even for an exit plan. And the quicker you start running KPIs, the easier it will be to keep managing it, as opposed to having to go back years or months and try to fit those numbers in, because things can change quite a lot in your business.
And just a few real life examples. So for example, we've had therapists come to us that, are stressed out, really frustrated with their practice, and they're not understanding why they're not making money and so forth. And we've, asked about their KPIs, and we sit down and we look at their numbers, and their numbers don't make sense. And to meet their goals. So for example, a therapist that's trying to be full-time in the practice and that's only doing like 20 visits a month, even though that therapist felt like she was really busy with the type of caseload that she was doing, she's not able to meet that. So you need to know even your basic KPIs, like how many clients do you need to see per week in order to make the money that you need to be sustainable and run your business. And you have to have, a rough idea right away from the start, and then you need to be tracking that. Even looking at referrals. We have therapists that, are frustrated and have been trying to build their business and they're not getting very many referrals. And then we're like, okay, let's look at your referral tracker and what you're doing with your referrals. And they've maybe talked with 4 companies. And when I say talked, they sent emails or sent letters. Again, we need to go back to, what you're actually doing in actual metrics. So then we can create and update those to get you to where you want in your practice. Moving on from KPIs, charge capture. So that's the process of documenting and assigning billable services provided to patients. And no matter what EMR you're using, that should be built in to the system with that. Anything you want to add on that, Steve?
No, that's good.
Insurance and credentialing terms. So insurance credentialing is the process of enrolling a provider with insurance networks to receive in-network reimbursements. Now, it's really important to understand the difference between credentialing and registering with a provider. I highly recommend that companies don't credential. That can be just lead to massive problems. If you don't know and understand the insurance, their rules, their payments, their fee schedules, and so forth. Depending on where you're at, your type of clientele is going to help you make that decision of what insurance you want to credential with. Now, if you want to do out-of-network billing, you don't have to credential with an insurance, but you have to register with them so that they have the information they need to pay you there. So credentialing and registering with an insurance provider, two completely different things. I am very passionate about recommending a hybrid approach, whether you're pediatrics to geriatrics. It's really going to depend on the clientele you see, where you are, what the insurance company reimbursement is there. Yes, cash pay practices can be amazing, and you don't have to deal with insurances and so forth, but if you're seeing older adults, probably not realistic with the requirements. But also some insurances, I know it's hard to believe, do pay very well. Again, we have insurances that are paying, $300 to $400 per hour visit. If I was doing cash pay, I would leave money on the table with them. So I personally recommend the hybrid approach. Steve, anything on insurance credentialing and the difference between credentialing and registering?
Yeah, so I mean, you essentially said most of it. So credentialing is important, but it's not always needed depending on the demographic area you're in. So oftentimes I have a lot of clinic owners come to me and give me a whole list of insurances they want to credential with. And I asked them why, and they said, because I want to see everybody. But credentialing with every insurance can actually be a drawback for you because a lot of those insurances pay very little. A lot of times your referrals might come with out-of-network benefits, so that you can actually bill higher rate for that, or you can actually charge them private pay, which they would pay you even more than what your rate would be in network. So it is very important to understand your area, your referral sources, and the types of patients that you can potentially be getting referrals for.
And a hybrid practice, yes, hybrid practice is a combination of insurance, cash, and even contracts. Exciting thing for our practice today is we actually negotiated a contract with a skilled nursing facility. And I love contracts because we don't have to deal at all with billing, insurance, anything. We bill the facility and they're the ones that are billing and getting reimbursement. So with the hybrid practice, we're looking at, you're doing a variety of models, whether it's not just cash, it's not just insurance, you have a combination. And I'd throw in that contract piece is another big one. We contract with home health companies. We now contract with a skilled nursing facility. And then we contract with a variety of facilities in our area to do other things besides, individual therapy, such as fitness classes and so forth. So hopefully that answered your question. Payer. So what is a payer? A payer is an entity, insurance company, Medicare, Medicaid, that reimburses providers for healthcare services. Fee schedule. A list of the maximum amounts insurance companies will pay for specific services. Do you all know where to find your Medicare and Medicaid fee schedules? Yes or no? And obviously, if you don't take Medicaid or Medicare, probably doesn't matter, but this is just something good that you all should know. So with fee schedules, unfortunately, a lot of insurance companies don't necessarily share their fee schedules. I am finding that we actually are, over the last couple of months, we've gotten in contract with a couple other newer insurance companies, and they've actually shared their fee schedule with us before we even started the process to make sure it was a good fit for us. But Medicare's fee schedule, if you go to your map, find the fee schedule for your area. Medicaid, each state, if you go to your Medicaid, the state website for Medicaid, you will be able to pull up the fee schedule for Medicaid. So those two payers, you have access to their fee schedules. Other insurance companies, you might not have access to the fee schedule until you've started working with them, or even until a little later in the process. Steve, what do you see about that?
Yeah, so one thing I also want to mention, like contracted rates also, is when you get a contract with an insurance, it's important to know that some of them won't even budge on the fee schedule. So Kara, I don't know if you ever had any experience negotiating rates, but it also depends on the area you're in. So fee schedule is extremely important because that's what you're expected to be paid. But you do have the option to negotiate a rate with some insurances, and it's always should be something you bring up when you do credentialing, because if you don't, then they just send you the rates that they typically pay and so on. But like, for example, there's insurances that they won't budge on the rates regardless of what it is, like Medicare, Medicaid, and even some commercial payers. They just have the rate and that's it, especially if it's an area that has a lot of other providers. So there's no reason for them to give you a higher rate. So if you are in an area, and I have many therapists I speak to that started a business in an area that there's not a lot of competition, the insurances are more willing to work with them. So it is important to know your fee schedule and your rate to make a determination of if you should or shouldn't credential with them.
And speaking of contracted rates, one of the newer insurance companies that we actually are credentialed with, and meaning we are in network with them, they're not paying us per unit, they're paying us per visit, which is the first insurance company that we've had that is going that route. But there was negotiations on that rate. So, okay, everyone good? Trying to answer the questions that come through. Do you guys have any specific questions on that? I mean, yes, the private insurances often don't share their fee schedules until you start going through the process with them, for sure. I really encourage, I don't know, Steve, where do you stand on this? As far as if someone's paying below Medicare, I think it's too low personally. But I know it also depends if you have a clinic or not and so forth. And it's really independent. It should be based on your own personal practice with that. But are there certain rates that you wouldn't go below?
Good question. This again, this goes back to like your business, right? So you have to know what you want your margins to be, what type of practice you're running. So at the end of the day, when you look at your revenue, does it make sense? So if you will take a lower contracted rate from an insurance, let's say, for example, and I know there's insurances that pay this like $50 a visit, right? It's not per unit, they just pay you $50. So you know, for a home visit, so if you're doing a mobile, you know, depending where you are, it most likely doesn't make sense, right? Because you have to travel and get there and parking, whatever it is, it might not be worth it. But if you do have a clinic, right, and you have other therapists, or depending on the guidelines, if you could see the patient with another patient, meaning like not one-on-one, then it can be worth it because you can double book the same patient, different patients for the same slot, right? So it really depends on your type of business, how many therapists you have as well. So yeah, it really needs to be looked at what type of business in order to determine what your rate should be. But of course, you don't want to go too low because that also cuts into your margins.
Yeah, and in regards to which payers would be below Medicare rates, the tough part is it does vary by state. And that's where I get back to, no one should be taking feedback off of social media for building and starting their business, growing their business and so forth, because we see a lot of things shared out there. But for example, Blue Cross Blue Shield in one state might be a great it really does vary. And on top of that, they like to make it even more difficult because within an insurance, they have all of these different types of policies, and you might be in network with one of them and not the other. I mean, there's constantly things you're dealing with these insurance. So yeah, it's tough. And in regards to negotiating rates, that is definitely something we can look at doing in another session as well. Insurance and credentialing terms, eligibility. So the provider's ability to service the patient based on the insurance regulations and benefits. How often, for those of you that already have a private practice, how often are you guys doing, checking the eligibility of your client's insurance? Are you doing it weekly, monthly, just on admit, never? And while you guys are typing in your questions, I will tell you we've had therapists come to us that have never looked at it. We have some that are doing it upon admission to the business, and then otherwise, it kind of hit and miss from there. So, okay, one on admin and at the new calendar year. Just on admin, but now we're doing it every recertification if appropriate. Okay, so a variety coming in. And also share with us how you guys are checking the insurance or your client's eligibility. So in order to verify eligibility, you will need the group provider's name, tax ID, social security number, NPI, group individual. Eligibility can be obtained through portal, phone call, or through an EMR and clearinghouse integration. We personally recommend checking eligibility at least monthly, as plan rules, termination dates can change. At least you need to do insurance verification before you're starting, so you have an idea of what's going on. But again, if someone's going in and out of the hospital or things like that, they might come home on home health and you don't know. And if you continue to see them while they're on home health as an outpatient provider, then you could be losing out on all of that money. As far as checking eligibility, a lot of our therapists, do it straight through Hello Note. A lot of therapists we work with do it through clearinghouse integrations. It just kind of depends. A lot of times for our own practice, we have to actually get on the phone and call the insurance to be clear on what's going on with that. So, Steve?
Yeah, so it's very important to check eligibility. You cannot always rely on what the patient tells you, which we find a lot of times that's the case. Even if they present you, for example, like a Medicare card, that the red, white, and blue one, it does not mean that they have traditional Medicare. And oftentimes they actually have another payer. And what ends up happening is if you don't check eligibility, by the time you do the notes, by the time you submit billing and get back the denial, if there's a denial due to wrong payer or something wrong, you might not even be able to get paid for those because it might be either timely filing or the insurance won't backdate your credentialing for that date, or just there's no out-of-network benefits and the patient was in network with a certain insurance that you're not. So I do recommend checking eligibility often. One feature in Hello Note we added is the eligibility right in HelloNote. So I highly recommend you use it. So this way you can check eligibility right in the patient chart. And on top of that, you can actually upload a copy of that eligibility check directly into the chart with just a click of a button. So no need to download anything, just click a button, it adds it to the chart. So if you need it for an appeal or just to reference it, you have it. So extremely important. With all that being said, some insurances, unfortunately, like portals are not always the best. So sometimes, depending on the insurance, you have to call them because they just don't work with portals or they don't send the right information or just something changed quicker than they sent to the portal. Unfortunately, it's just an industry issue. Even billing companies, they prefer always to call the insurance. So it is really important to run eligibility. And the more you do that, the more you know about the plan and the insurance, so you can actually anticipate how strict you have to be with that patient or that insurance, as opposed to being a little more lenient and say, okay, I know that plan, I know what goes into it, I know they have authorization, I know I can't bill certain codes or whatever it is. But yeah, eligibility must be run often, especially for patients you're just constantly seeing. I would recommend at least checking eligibility once a month. In HelloNote, you're going to see some cool automation things we're building, including automatic eligibility checks, meaning you'll be able to have the system run eligibility checks for you. And if it notices there was a change from the last time it runs, it's going to alert you. So yeah, a lot of automation we're working on because running eligibility is not always fun. So anything we can do from our side in the software, we are working on. So any feedback you have as well, let us know. We'll be happy to implement that because we definitely don't want anyone to not get paid because of eligibility or lack of eligibility that was not run.
Awesome. And benefits. So benefits refer to what services the insurance plan allows the patient to receive, as well as any copay, coinsurance that might be present on the plan. Again, it's important to remind patients, clients that you work with that they really need to know and understand their own insurance benefits. And it's good for them to call and make sure they know and understand what their benefits are as well. And then authorization. So sometimes insurance companies will request you to obtain their approval to see a patient. I have a authorization form right here, which includes a certain amount of visits. And this can be based on number of visits per unit or per discipline. It often comes with a start date. If you have an insurance company that does require authorizations, again, it's extremely important to make sure you have this set up so that you don't fall outside the window of what you were authorized to see with that. Steve, anything else to add on either of those topics?
Yeah, just authorizations. And as I said before, like once you know the insurance, you're gonna know what goes into that insurance. So a lot of times in the beginning, it's more difficult because you don't know what to expect. But as you grow, as you get more patients with that insurance, you'll already know the deal with that insurance. You'll already know what to look for. You know, if there's a pre-auth or whatever it is, you'll know. So it is very important to understand what authorizations are, what type of authorizations there could be. And HelloNote actually has every option available. So whether it's visits or units or minutes, just plug that into the HelloNote insurance tab, and it keeps track of the date range, the visit limits, all of that. So even if you forget that you shouldn't have seen a patient on the schedule, is going to actually remind you. And if you try to do your note, or especially if you have therapists that you work with and they try to do a note, it's going to stop them because of the authorization restriction. So it is really important to get the authorization information, plug that into HelloNote. So this way the system works for you to avoid any unnecessary denials because you went over your authorization.
So, and More insurance and credentialing terms. So it's important that you guys understand what the difference is between in-network and out-of-network. So in-network providers are contracted with the patient's insurance companies. Out-of-network providers do not have contracted rates and are usually reimbursed higher than in-network. The patient will usually pay higher rates for this. And then when you're looking at out-of-network, you need to know the difference between HMOs and PPOs within that. And then deductible. So that's the amount the patient must pay before their insurance starts to pay for services. Steve, I know you had some examples here. Do you want to go over more detail with that?
Yeah, so with in-network, out-of-network, and deductibles, it's a loaded topic a lot of times for a lot of therapists because with in-network, usually it's HMO plans that you'll see on the insurance card. With out-of-network, it's PPO, but sometimes you'll see an HMO and they have out-of-network benefits. Okay, so it is important to know the difference on that. As far as deductibles go, deductibles are also part of the eligibility check. Make sure you ask what the deductible is. And on top of asking what the deductible is, it's important to also ask if there's a specific, if therapy is excluded. Because a lot of times there are plans that they have a deductible or for like certain other services, but for therapy, they don't. So it is important to know that. And yeah, just make sure you plug that into Hello Note as well to help you manage that. And you still have to bill the visit. So Kara, I don't know if you also had this issue before, but a lot of therapists I speak to, they say, oh, they have a deductible, I'm not gonna bill it, right? So that's not accurate. You have to bill it, otherwise the insurance doesn't know that they have to decrease the deductible because if nobody's billing. Okay, so it is very important to make sure that you are billing the visit, even though you're going to get paid zero because there's a deductible. You still have to bill the visit, get the ERA back. It's going to say the patient responsibility there, and that's what you collect.
Okay, copayment, co-insurance, out-of-pocket max, more insurance terms. So copayment, this is amount a patient pays every time they are seen for services. So whether they have a $20, $30 copayment, you should collect that at time of service. Co-insurance is the amount the patient is responsible for. Again, it's best practice to collect at time of service. You do have to estimate what this is. So if a patient has a 20% co-insurance, then, and this is a good example, like with Medicare, Medicare will pay 80% and then they have a 20% co-insurance. So the patient's responsible for that 20% unless they have a secondary. And then out-of-pocket max, maximum amount the patient will pay out-of-pocket per year. And you will see when you do insurance verifications that there is an out-of-pocket max for in-network and out-of-network as well. Steve, more you want to add to either of these?
No, just one thing I like to always add about co-insurance is you can also estimate it. So every visit, you're collecting something for the patient. So this way you don't, and again, assuming you can collect it, a lot of states like with the Medicaid, for example, you can collect the remaining. Some states you can, but I think most don't pay. But if a patient has a secondary, it's just going to take a little bit of time for them to, for the billing, and then you get the ERA back and so on. What we like to recommend is estimate what it's going to be, charge the patient upfront for it for that visit. So this way, when you do get those ERAs back, you can balance out, whether they owe you something, they don't owe you, and it's going to end up being a couple dollars as opposed to hundreds of dollars that they have to owe you. And then they might, get upset or, stop coming even for therapy. And again, speaking from experience, that happens a lot. So, even if you're upfront with them and tell them you have a co-insurance, and then you hit them in a month with like a couple $100 bill for all their secondaries that they owe, then you might not see that patient again, and you don't want to deal with, either that or collections, whatever it is. So it's good just to say you have a quote 20% co-insurance, for example. Based on the visits, you're gonna end up paying about, whatever it is, $5 or $18, depending on the insurance, whatever it is, and just have them pay that upfront. And then when you put that into Hello Note, once the payments get posted with the actual insurance, it's going to adjust the balance. So either there's going to be a credit or there's going to be a little more balance. But at the end of the day, you could see on the bottom right total, and then you could just ask the patient to give you that amount and balance it. And if you owe them money, then just write them a check, and that's it.
Actually just had this scenario with a therapist, this she hadn't billed them out yet, but she was concerned because she was waiting for the ERAs to come in. But like you mentioned, she was concerned that the bill was going to get so high. So we figured out what to estimate it at so she could start collecting that sooner than later. Okay, claims and billing terms. Exciting terms. So again, a lot of basic ones here. So claim, a request for payment submitted to an insurance company for services provided. Clean claim, a correctly submitted claim with no errors, allowing for timely reimbursement. Claim denial, a rejected claim due to errors, missing information, or lack of coverage. Claim rejection, a claim returned due to incorrect formatting or missing required data. And then denied claims management, the process of reviewing and appealing denied claims to secure reimbursement. And I'd say one thing we see a lot is, especially with therapists that get up and going rather quickly, they really fall behind on this. And there are some very simple things that they could do and fix on maybe some rejected claims that they could resubmit, but they don't take the time to do it. So it kind of ends up building up to be a big mess. So managing your denied claims is essential from the beginning, and make sure that you are addressing it. Steve?
Yeah, and it's important to do so very timely. As soon as you have a denial or rejection, just take care of it and resubmit it. It's fairly simple to do so, especially in the therapy world. There's only a handful of kind of denials you're going to get. Once you know all those codes, you're going to know what it is. Also with Hello Note, with the importing the ERAs, you can actually see what the adjustment code is. So you can also filter by that adjustment code. So if there's denials, you could kind of bulk them up all in one for all the denials that you're having and deal with them. But yeah, it's very important to do so as quick as possible.
And there's, making sure that people know there's timely filing rules in place. There's even with appeals, we had just gotten a letter about an appeal has to be, filed within so many days and so forth. So very important to keep up to date on your claims and dealing with them instead of just hoping they will go away, because they will not go away. Okay, more claims and billing terms. How many in here know what the function or what a clearinghouse is? Yes or no? Just to get an idea of where you guys are at with. Okay, awesome. And what clearinghouses, for you guys that know what clearinghouse do you guys use? Just so we kind of know where people are at. So a clearinghouse is the medium between the practice and payers. The billing data flows from the clearinghouse to the payer. The data is sent back to the clearinghouse. The CMS 1500 will have all the data needed to submit your claim electronically. Anyways, when I talk to our therapist about clearinghouse, I talk about how, you have your EMR on one side. That's where you're doing your documentation, getting everything done after seeing your clients. And then you have the insurances on the other side. they're the ones that are gonna get the claims and pay you, but in the middle is your clearinghouse. And that kind of scrubs everything and makes sure that your claims are all good before you send it on to the insurance company. But Steve probably has a better description than my description of it. So Steve, anything you want to add on the clearinghouse?
No, that's good. Essentially, the clearinghouse functions just to make sure that you can submit claims and electronically receive those ERAs. So HelloNote does work with different clearinghouses. You know, there's if you're coming, for example, from another system, you want to leave your clearinghouse, that's fine. We can work with it, especially all the kind of therapy clearinghouses that are common. We can work with them. Inovalon is a popular one because that's a clearinghouse we know very well. So we do recommend that one. So if you're with Inovalon, you can essentially send us support tickets if you need, and we'll help you out. So yeah, I mean, essentially the clearinghouse just functions the same way. The integration works the same way. We can push claims out from HelloNote to the clearinghouse, and the ERAs flow back into HelloNote as well, especially recently with a new automated ERA feature. So yeah, you just want to make sure, and I think it's important to mention though that not every insurance requires an EDI enrollment to allow you to submit claims. Some of them you could just submit without EDI, but all insurances would require an ERA enrollment for you to get those ERAs back.
Steve, do you want to go in and talk about the EDI versus ERA versus EFTs?
Sure. So EDI it's essentially an application that allows you to submit claims to the insurance. Okay, so again, not every insurance requires an EDI. If it does, then we can initiate it for you and just fill out. Usually it requires your signature on the form, and it just allows the clearinghouse to submit claims to that payer if they require an EDI. ERA is the opposite, where the insurance now sends back the remittance. So for example, if you're getting an EOB in the mail and you don't want to manually post payments, you want an ERA, so it flows back into the clearinghouse, and then you can essentially post it into HelloNote to balance everything out. And EFTs, so EFT has nothing to do with clearinghouse. I know a lot of times it's mixed in there, which is why it's on this slide. But EFT is essentially how you get paid by the insurance. So, you know, by default, you'll probably get a check. But if you set up an EFT with them, an electronic funds transfer, then the insurance will send you direct deposit, which typically is what you want, because you get paid faster and you don't have to worry about depositing checks or losing mail, whatever the case may be. So next one is payer ID. So payer ID is, I always call it like a routing number, kind of like in your checking account, where it doesn't matter what the name of the insurance is. What matters is the payer ID to let the clearinghouse know that they're sending it to the right place. Okay, and don't forget, there's some insurances and plans that have a lot of different payer IDs floating around. So it's important to know for that insurance and that plan what that payer ID is. Okay, because sometimes it does happen. You choose, you know, for example, like, I don't know, like United Healthcare, you'll choose a payer ID, and then you're going to get a denial because, you know, the patient doesn't exist in their system, only to find out that they have a specific plan and it routes through a different payer ID. So that's important.
And then, yeah, with payer IDs, again, you know, we have one insurance company that has multiple different payer IDs, and it's so important to make sure you set that up correctly in HelloNote or whatever EMR that you guys are using for insurance. Steve, we have a question. How many days does it take to have the ERAs imported automatically into HelloNote from Inovalon? I know that I have new ERAs in Inovalon. I can do it manually, but noticed recently that if I import manually, then Inovalon will also import automatically the error missing
So
information ERAs.
yeah, so if you have the and this, this is not just for Novalon, it's even other clearinghouses that we have this feature with. So it pulls in on a daily basis. However, it's important to know that sometimes, they don't post the ERA on a daily basis, so it can be every couple days. So if you don't get an ERA every single day, there's no reason to worry. It just means that it just didn't come in yet. But definitely every couple days. But to answer that question is if you have the feature enabled that it's automatic, you should definitely not do manual. Okay, so you shouldn't do both. So if you enable the automatic importing, then no longer you should do manual, because you don't want to have duplicate ERAs or duplicate posting, whatever it is. So so you should just make a decision whether you want to do it manually, which again, there's nothing wrong with that, just takes more time, or you want us to enable the automatic one. And if we do enable automatic, then do not do manual anymore.
Okay, and then more coding compliance terms, current procedural terminology, CPT codes. One thing I'd like to add on CPT codes, you really should make sure that if you have other therapists and so forth, that you don't just give them free range to every CPT code out there, because they might not know and understand that some CPT codes aren't reimbursed, as well as it's just important for you to know too what insurances will cover. For example, like one of our insurances doesn't cover self-care. It doesn't cover, a couple other different codes. So, obviously we don't want to bill those codes because we wouldn't get reimbursed for that. So it's really important to know and understand what CPT codes you should be using in your practice. And then the International Classification of Diseases, ICD-10 codes, diagnostic codes used to classify diseases and conditions. And, again, making sure you understand the difference between the medical and treatment diagnoses codes, healthcare common procedural coding system used for billing Medicare and Medicaid services, and then medical necessity. We hear a lot of that discussed out there, which is a requirement that services provided must be necessary for diagnosing or treating a condition. I know I went through that fast, but I want to get to your Q&A. Steve, anything you have to add from that?
No, these are just basic terminologies that I think every therapist should know already. So I think it was a good summary.
For those of you that are on live, we want to make sure we answer your questions, and then we will go through the questions that people submitted to us prior. Do you guys have any questions for us that you want us to cover? You can either put it in the chat here, or you can put it in the Q&A section as well. Steve, we have one on KPIs. Wondering what KPIs do you recommend tracking?
So again, this goes back to what type of business you have. I mean, there's definitely KPIs that are uniform for everybody. Like you want to be tracking how many monthly evaluations you're doing. If you have a multidisciplinary practice, you should also break that down. So not only for PT, but also for OT and speech, because it does make a difference for your business. Also, how many monthly treatment visits is important. So if, again, same thing, PT, OT, speech, you should know how many each. Also, how many monthly referrals you're getting is important. How much your no-show and cancellation rate is huge to know. And then like financial ones, like what's your outstanding patient responsibility, meaning how much outstanding money do your patients owe you, and then how much outstanding insurance balance you have. So those are important to track at the very least. But of course, there's other ones, and we'll do a webinar on KPIs.
Yeah, and just to highlight what Steve said, it's really important to base it off of your own practice, or what type of practice you have as well, because it's really gonna vary. Okay, we have a question. If you are providing some wellness services without a current CPT code for the service you are providing, would you just provide a receipt instead of a super bill and explain this to the client? Steve, I'll let you take that one first.
Okay, let me just want to read it. Where did it come in?
It's in the chat.
I see. Okay, so if you are providing some wellness services without current CPT code for the service you are providing, would you just provide a receipt instead of a super bill? Yeah, so what I understand from that question is you're providing wellness, but you're not billing for CPT codes, meaning you don't really have to, because if it's wellness, you're welcome to, especially you're taking private pay, you're welcome just to set up a fixed rate for that visit and then generate a receipt for that patient to pay. So yes, so if you're not billing to like there's no medical necessity, it's wellness, then yes, you don't have to provide a super bill. You just print out a receipt. It's going to show your rate for that visit and what they paid. So once they pay, you apply the payment, and you can print them a receipt showing the zero balance. That's really it. And on top of that,
No,
yeah,
go
Kara,
ahead,
go
Steve.
ahead.
No, you can continue.
So on top of that, if for whatever reason the patient wants a super bill, then again, you have to either, because if you're not providing any medical necessity or anything like that, and there's no CPT codes to bill, then you really don't have a choice because it has to go by super bill. But you can in HelloNote actually add your own CPT codes, and we have many clients that do that, and they add a CPT code called like 001 wellness. Whatever they want to do, and then you can actually create a billing note, which is not really it's not a documentation note, it's just a billing note that allows you to input diagnosis codes, CPT codes, and units, and from that you're welcome to print out a super bill, hand it to your patient, and whatever they have to do, they'll do.
The only thing I was gonna add, and this really has nothing to do with the person asking the question or anything like that, but also when you're dealing with older adults and so forth, just be really careful on what a lot of people don't know and understand, like the whole maintenance side of therapy with older adults and so forth. We see some people talking about services that technically might be billable, but they're just saying their wellness. So, there's a fine line there too on what you're doing as well. So something to keep in mind for anyone wanting to do more of the wellness type approach. Okay, so I think we answered all the questions on the chat, but we have questions that people submitted last time. And I have them pulled up here so you guys can see what questions they are. And I will pull them over. Maybe I'll pull them over. Okay, and this is probably pretty small for you guys. Okay, so how to automatically adjust patient responsibility when coinsurance and deductible are applied and only a portion remains. I'm currently having to manually calculate that. Steve, I'm thinking that might be specifically related to HelloNote. Not 100% sure.
Yeah. I mean, if this person can reach out to us so they could give us more details, like the patient, the visit, we can do that. But it sounds to me like you could just use the auto balance. So if you click on the actions button, click auto balance, HelloNote will actually do the math for you and calculation. So you shouldn't have to calculate that manually. You could just put in what the end balance is or adjust it to patient responsibility, and that's it. It's going to do that for you. So definitely use auto balance for that. But if you have more information, you can reach out to us. We'll be happy to help.
Okay, I'm interested in connecting with other professionals in RCM and seeing current trends and topics, as well as maximizing insurance reimbursement. So mostly just if you have specific things that you want to connect about, just again, email us, so we know a little bit more, about that. Like for myself and our company, we do use Hello Note, and then, most of our RCM cycle is run through Athellis, another, company that Hello Note partners with as well. Considering moving billing to in-house versus third party, so hoping to gain knowledge on billing advice, etc. In regards to this, it really depends on so many different factors, like what kind of company are you, how many therapists do you have, how many claims do you have, what insurances you're taking, and kind of where you're at in your practice. I know, Steve, you talk a lot about in-house versus third party and so forth. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, this this typically requires us to understand more of your business model, but there's pros and cons to both. There's sometimes where it's great to do in-house billing, and sometimes it's great to do third party. So we can definitely have a conversation about that. If you reach out, we'll understand your business now. For this specific question, it looks like you're considering moving, meaning you already have a third party, so you want to do in-house. And we can help you plan for that, right? So that's an important conversation to have, because we actually understand your model, and we give you timelines and expectations based on, because we've done this for like hundreds of clients already, where we move them from in-house to third party or vice versa. So we know what goes into it. We know what to expect. So we want to make sure we lay out all the cards for you, so you could make an educated decision with minimal cash flow issues, because sometimes it can cut into
It's not a
cash
fun
flow.
process.
Yeah, it's not fun, but you shouldn't lose money on this. It just means there
No,
might be just a delay
you
in
need to
getting
plan
it.
appropriately.
Yeah. So reach out to us. We'll be happy to have a conversation on that.
And that also goes back to the discussion that it's, especially for those of you that are just getting started or newer practices, it's extremely important to know and understand the billing process. And when you have an EMR with the integration, like HelloNote does, you can easily learn to do it yourself, so that when you do look at bringing someone else on to manage it, or you're looking for something else, you know what's going on with it. Just so important. Um, Will there be any AI features to help with RCM? So we have a lot of AI tools that we utilize in, with Athellis with our RCM process. And we could even do a whole kind of topic on that. But Steve, I mean, like, for example, we have AI, what the correct term is, that they automatically call clients for collections and things like that. And so forth. But Steve, where on your end with Hello Note and Inovalon and all of that, do you guys have any AI features to help with RCM?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the fun part about being in software, is we get to do a lot of research and development with trends. So AI right now is a huge kind of topic in the industry, and even outside of the industry. There's just so much going on, and the technology is evolving very quickly. So we already added many AI features into the platform, like automatic ERAs. We also can help you send out claims as soon as the note is finalized, so you don't have to go through the scrubbing process manually. And even documentation. We're actually building some cool AI stuff on documentation. Some of that is already launched. So if you read our like what's new, you'll be able to look into that. But yeah, I mean, overall, every single week we work with our engineering team very closely, and they do an awesome job just being receptive to feedback and bringing kind of feedback to life. So AI and RCM, we feel like, is important because it goes back to the core reason Hello Note exists, is to save you time, right, and money. So we want to make sure we add as many features as possible that will do exactly that. And with AI, with RCM, you can piece it together where it helps you push claims out, maximize reimbursement, get you paid, automatic posting, all of that. So so it's a fun ride. So we're excited for it, and you're going to see a lot of new AI updates over this year and next year as well.
What specific banking systems have you found to be the best options from your experience or other therapists that you have worked with to set up a business bank account, online banking versus physical bank? So for me personally, um, I really like working with a physical bank. Here locally, it's just really nicely, but it works very nicely. But we do have therapists in our programs that we work with that go the online route. So, Steve, do you have any recommendations? And it could be based on where you live. Like, also, like, I live in a town of 1,000 next to a town of 60,000. So, again, we just went where we currently bank and they have great business banking and stuff there, so it works very well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it just depends where you are. It just depends, to speak to the banks just to make sure that they're providing you with what you need. Some of them also I recommend, like sometimes you want to take out a loan to grow your business. So make sure you also know what type of options they provide for that.
Awesome. Verifying insurance that you are out of network with. Steve, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so same as verifying insurance that you're in network with. It's essentially the same process. It's just very important to make sure that that insurance knows who you are. So if you're trying to run eligibility like through Hello Note or through a clearinghouse, you might get an error because they just don't know who you are, right? So typically what that would require is you contacting the insurance and you provide them like an W-9 or any like application. So just want to make it clear, this is not credentialing. So when you speak to the insurances, sometimes they'll and a lot of the reps don't know what they're talking about, unfortunately. So it's important that you know what you're talking about so you don't go down a rabbit hole and get yourself into like credentialing where you don't mean to. So make it clear that you just want to be able to check and submit claims out of network. So you do not want to get credentialed. You just want to put your information in their system. Other than that, once they have you in their system, you should be able to run eligibility the same way.
And let's see, to clarify, you are seeing insurance that is limiting minutes as well as units. Steve, I mean, to my knowledge, I know insurances are limiting units such as 4 units max per visit. Are you seeing anything about minutes?
Yes, we are seeing minutes, and we actually have an update to put that into our eligibility tracking. Not really, sorry, not eligibility tracking. It's just a limitation on how many minutes you can bill either per session or per case. Because sometimes it is per case as well. Like they'll say, okay, you could see the patient for 500 minutes for the year. So instead of doing it per the session, you want to do it per the case. So yes, we are seeing that. It's not popular right now. Hopefully it doesn't get to be more popular, but absolutely there are some insurances that are doing it, and you can add this into Hello Note.
Always something. Can you go more into detail about choosing a clearinghouse?
Yeah, clearinghouse. So again, going back to what a clearinghouse is, so it functions the same way. So really, honestly, it really doesn't make a difference which clearinghouse you use. I mean, we'll, especially if it's a new client, whatever it is, we would recommend the Novolon only because we know them so well and we work well with them. Meaning you don't have to reach out to the clearinghouse for any questions. You can reach out to us, and we have an amazing billing team members that will handle those inquiries if you have. So if you do want to use another clearinghouse because you're used to them, then that's fine. We do integrate with many of them, so just let us know which one. My personal opinion is go with the clearinghouse that we know, only because it just helps with speeding up everything else. But we're open to work with whichever clearinghouse. Typically with the Novolon, I mean, look, with every company, there's pros and cons, but typically, I will say probably in the high 90% percentile range, we don't have an issue with the Novolon. So if you're not happy with them or for whatever reason, we can work with others, but I would just recommend the Novolon just because we know them very well.
What are some other clearinghouses that you guys do work with?
So to name a few that I know we work with are Waystar, Trizetto, ClaimMD, Tebra, Collaborate MD. What else we got? Office Ally is one. Typically, those are the ones we hear. Again, some of them are not common, but those are a few that come to my head.
For a deductible, well, I mean, it depends on what insurance and what you are seeing them for, because an eval is going to be different than a treatment, and it could be different depending on the insurance and their fee schedule and so forth. So Steve, do you have any blanket recommendation you provide? I mean, we kind of base it based on all of those things.
Yeah, same. Just really depends on when you run the eligibility and you know what deductible they have. So I don't know, if there's a good amount I mean, you have to take a realistic one as well. So it is important because once you get the ERA, it's going to say the patient responsibility there as well. So you don't want to overshoot or undershoot. So, I mean, and again, as you build that insurance, once you know that plan, you'll know what to expect for the next patient.
And this is why it's very important, you guys, that when you are adding new insurances or you're seeing people with different insurances, you make sure you're keeping track of those insurances so you learn all their different nuances as well. So we have a tracker that we use for all of the insurance companies. So we start to have an idea of all of these different things. We already ran over the KPIs. Steve, what report should we use to track our monthly cancellations?
Well, the good news is that on your dashboard, you should already have the monthly no-show cancellation rate, which is great. Other than that, if you just want to run it specifically for some date ranges, whatever it is, so I would recommend going to the schedule report, the schedule category under reports, and then you can do the visits report. So there you can actually see all of your visits and you can break it down by attendance status, which includes cancellation, late cancellation, no-show, and then you can use that to track your cancellation rate.
Okay, so we went over all the questions that were submitted. For those of you that are still on, do you have any last minute questions that you would like us to address on RCM? Oh, Steve, we have a question. Sorry, Charity, I missed that. What's the best way to get in touch with HelloNote regarding learning more about how to use the software? I have it, but emails don't seem to work as well.
So if you want more of like a live session, if you have a lot of questions and you don't want to send emails or, for whatever reason, you can always ask the support team to schedule a call with you. So you can absolutely schedule a screen share or an onboarding call or something like that, and somebody could definitely set that up.
Any other questions that you guys have? And if you don't have a question before you log off for the day, if you could share one thing that you learned today that will help you in your practice, that would be awesome. If you could share that in the chat. Charity is wondering if you have a handbook on HelloNote. So like for the therapists that we work with in our therapy business builder program, we actually do group coaching with Steve twice a month. And then we also have a whole slate of videos and resources on Hello Note. And then we have a Telegram group for therapists to connect with on a regular basis. But Hello Note also has resources on their YouTube channel and website and so forth as well.
Yeah, and on top of that, so we are working on completely redefining our knowledge base with YouTube videos and recordings. So so give us a little more time, and we'll have a lot more knowledge-based articles and videos on that. So, and I know we're adding features very fast. So we do have plans to, every time we launch a feature, for it to be linked to a video on how to use that feature. So thanks everyone for the feedback. We appreciate it. We know sometimes it's hard to keep up because we do launch a lot of stuff. So we're working to do better on that. But if you have any questions on any feature, just shoot us an email, schedule a call. We'll be happy to do it.
Some thing that you learned, any suggestions on topics you want for our next sessions, that would be great as well. So thank you, Janet, for sharing your one tip that you learned. That's awesome. Okay, well, thank you, Steve, for being on, and thank all of you guys for joining us today. Hopefully we see you next month at our private practice power hour session, and we'll look at how many requests we get in, but either looking at systems or the KPIs and some of those areas. But if you have specific requests, feel free to reach out. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks, Kara. Thanks, everyone.